Hi, David Moore with IRA Advantage, and today we've got Tina Colson in our firm joining us, and hopefully I'll be able to answer all the questions she's got for me today. So
we're going to be tricky today. So
she's testing me.
We get a lot of questions that come in regarding objections with self-directed IRAs. So how do we overcome those objections?
So typical objections when we're talking about self-directed accounts, IRAs, 401k plans, usually those objections are just not accurate objections. I mean, they're something that people have come up with through the years, and it seems like a good reason not to do something. So one of the most common objections in self-directed accounts with buying, let's say, real estate, for example, is that real estate's not liquid. So, boy, what happens, if you need to sell it? Well, that's true. You don't like a stock, you sell it, right? It doesn't take long. You don't like a piece of real estate, you got to find a buyer for it. So, there is a timeliness issue. But, let me ask you if that's really a bad thing. In the investment world, they talk about the lack of liquidity as being bad. Well, how's the stock market look the last couple of weeks?
Not so good.
Yeah, and we are just for a period piece. I'm sorry to do this to you, but we're in the coronavirus period. So we've had a couple of weeks of absolute craziness. So is the liquidity a good thing or a bad thing? And if we're looking at the real estate, one of the things, the big issue, I guess, with liquidity or lack of liquidity with real estate is that, what happens if you get to 72 years old and you've got that RMD, a required minimum distribution you got to take, and one of the big objections is, you've got to take an RMD, and you used all the money, and now you don't have anything to take. Well, I really look at that not as a problem. I look at it as an opportunity. And I'm maybe be a little warped in that, but the bottom line is you got to look at some point, whatever you've put in has to come out of an account, right? I mean, no matter what goes into a retirement account, it has to come out. How are you taxed on that? Your tax is normal income tax. I mean, a Roth, you don't have that. I mean, the difference, traditional Roth funds, obviously dramatic. Traditional is pre-tax money growing tax deferred. A Roth is tax money that's growing tax free. So what I'm going to talk about doesn't necessarily apply to Roth accounts, but traditional accounts. We're just looking at a situation where you've got to take stuff out. How do you minimize the tax consequence? And I would say that lack of liquidity, or you're not stuck if you can't take a cash distribution. It's something that's just not contemplated very often. So let's say you buy a piece of property with your retirement account, your IRA 401k, and you really like that asset. Well, do you want to sell it? No. Do you want to take a cash distribution? No. Can you take a piece of that property as a distribution? And the answer is yes. Take an in-kind distribution. So the fact you don't have the cash for cash distribution is really irrelevant. Take a piece of something, take an in-kind distribution. If you've taken a minority interest in that thing, think about this. Number one, what is something worth? Okay? I mean, if it's a stock, it's the quoted price. If it's a piece of property, what is the property worth? It's really ultimately worth what a buyer or seller are going to agree to, highest, best use, so on and so forth. But it depends on what kind of property is, how it's valued, and go talk to an appraiser or go talk to a CCIM that understands property analysis and valuation. That's going to give you that thing. But if we're talking about taking a piece of something, we can actually discount that value by up to 40%. So instead of taking a cash distribution and taking $10,000 out and paying tax on $10,000 of income in effect, if you took a $10,000 interest in a piece of property and that was a minority interest, you could actually discount that by up to 40%. So instead of taking 10, you're taking 6.
Great.
So let me ask you this, Tina. Is it possible to maybe look at that not as a problem, but as a tremendous opportunity? Is a leading question. Sorry, counselor. But you look at it and you say, okay, it's not a problem, but is it actually an opportunity? Could you maybe accelerate distributions while minimizing the tax consequence by taking in kind?
Absolutely. Yeah. I like that option, and I think that there's a lot of people out there that could benefit through that.
Good answer. I like that. So, once again, David Moore, Tina Colson, IRA Advantage, IRAadvantage.com. Thank you very much for your time today. If you've got questions on any of these topics or any others, please do not hesitate to reach out, and we'll be happy to address your questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.